good day, beloved. So wonderful to be with you. Welcome to Faith Without Borders. I'm your host, Pastor Calvin Sauls, and as we gather right here, big things going on all over Los Angeles because of last Sunday's win by the LA Rams, the Super Bowl champions, y'all. All right, so the Hollywood sign is transformed into Rams House. My goodness, Santa Monica Pier. The wheel. Rams done take over that. My goodness, and of course at 11 o'clock Pacific time, the parade is gonna start. So it is only appropriate that we continue to also talk about what went down on Super Bowl Sunday, especially what went down during the halftime show. And as you know, here at Faith Without Borders, our purpose, our vision, our goal is to engage in thought-provoking and solutions-driven, courageous conversations on critical transnational issues. And seeing that the Super Bowl is like this global event, right? I mean, I had my folk, all over the world check this out, even though it was in the middle of the night over there. My brother was, watching it, and folk in Ghana was watching it. So, yeah, it is, a global event. And so whatever happens on that field and that stage is transnational, or should I say, it has transnational or global consequences. And so it is up to us to see how we can, analyze what went on that day, so that we can see how we can transform entertainment into edutainment. And I'm telling you, I appreciate the networks that I'm a part of because they always conscientize me on a lot that would happen, at such huge cultural events. And I especially appreciate that as a black immigrant, because sometimes I don't see everything, that's happening. And so I'm always glad to call on friends and colleagues, to roll with a brother, come on board, and just enlighten. And yes, I was in it too, sending memes, and when there was a touchdown, doing my thing, enjoyed the pizza and the wings, and I was all up in it until after the halftime show. And I was pretty excited about the halftime show, and you're going to see in a minute why, as I introduce two of my beloved brothers, from the Krip Nation, that movement around, black disability, accessibility, equity, et cetera, et cetera. And so we'll get to that. But that's what we're going to get into, today, as we seek to break bad in 2022. Today is no exception. Our theme today, of course, is the 2022 Super Bowl halftime show, Black Inclusion and Liberation, analyzing the many controversies and the epic snub to deaf and disabled rappers on the main stage. A lot of folk probably missed this. Now, I look forward to it because I was aware that something was going down because, Leroy and Keith, who I have on today, they alerted me on this when we hung out, in Leimert Park, a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they both were just ecstatic about it in terms of, what happened. So while, deaf, white football players were all part of the coin toss and all at the beginning, black rap artists were snubbed from the main stage. Now, big ups to Dr. Dre for bringing them into the fold, as part of his commitment to inclusion, equity, and all of that. But we're going to get, into, all of that. So it's good to have you here. We're going to check this out, go deep. And I'm going to go ahead, without further ado, to bring our esteemed and distinguished panel that's going to join us, today. And they are none other than my sister Rev, sister Doc, Juju, right down here in Los Angeles. She knows her hip hop. She's down with it, and I really enjoyed, our text messaging, on Clergy for Black Lives, a thread, around all of that. Reverend Dr. Najuma Smith, she is the founding and senior pastor of Word of Encouragement Church right here in Los Angeles. She does a bunch of other stuff. But that's how we're going to roll with her today, as she brings that pastoral analysis, and also as one that loves the art and the music as we move forward. Then from Atlanta, Georgia, Bishop Dr. Monte Norwood, my brother from another mother. He's a senior pastor of the Bible Way Ministries International in Atlanta, Georgia. Both of these individuals have been frequent guests here because, they are some of my go-to people for critical analysis and practice of a hermeneutic of suspicion, and all of that. So glad that they are here. And then I'm so glad to welcome back, Leroy Moore Jr. He's been on Faith Without Borders before. And Keith Jones, who I just met a couple of weeks ago. And, man, we had a blast in Lamert Park. Oh, wow. It was great to just hang out with these brothers. They are artivists and advocates for people with disabilities. They are authors as well as the co-founders of the Krip Hop Nation. And we're going to hear all about that as we move on. Well, beloved, good day and welcome to Faith Without Borders. Are we in the house? I'm going to go ahead and ladies first. So, they said, tell me Pastor Juju is not here yet. She'll pull in. Let me go to Bishop Norwood. Are you with us, sir?
I'm with you. I'm here. Glad to be here too.
Yeah, so good to see you from Atlanta. Now, look, I know, I don't know whether you watched the game or not, seeing that
I did.
The Atlanta team wasn't in, I hope you're not one of those people who said,
wait.
team ain't in.
That's a newsflash. We have a team? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Lord. Oh, my goodness. Look,
yeah.
A lot went on behind the scenes before the show, of course, behind the scenes, and also, the tug, and the fight and all of that, one, Eminem kneeling, of course, Dr. Dre and Kendrick Lamar, they had lines in there that was a little controversial. And, I think, the line that was controversial for Dr. Dre still ain't got no love for the police. Folk thought that would just cause so much, division and all of that. I mean, I don't know whether they expected, anything different, after, the hit song, with NWA. And then also, of course, Kendrick, Lamar, I believe they didn't bleep out, Dre's line, but they did with Kendrick, because he also referred to, the popo. He didn't say the police; he said the popo. So it was interesting around what went down there. And then, of course, I believe there was a lot of controversy around what Snoop Dogg, was going to wear, and it, being all about, gang paraphernalia, and all of that. And the thing about all of this is, Snoop Dogg was on and he was Krip walking the whole time, in case folk didn't, realize that. But this, this whole piece about, this genre, has been a genre on the one hand of protest, on the other hand of prolific articulation of what was going on in neighborhood and in the streets. It's been a critique, of, America in general, and also courageously, you see, analyzing, what was going on, in terms of what we find ourselves in. I mean, can you just kind of share your thoughts, around,
Sure.
That halftime show and just what went on behind the scenes, what went on the stage, and just, the whole shebang.
I think there was a lot, as you said, you expressed it well. There was a lot going on. There were multiple layers. I believe that rap and hip hop is the CNN of the hood. And you had some of the foremost performers there, particularly from the 90s and the 2000s, and it seemed to be universally received and received well. But I'm always looking at the symbol versus the substance versus the symbol. If you looked at the pregame show, which was several hours, there was not a lot mentioned about one of the elephants in the room, that is the lack of hiring of Black coaches in the NFL. At the time, the lawsuit by Flores, former coach of the Dolphins, was filed, there was only one Black coach in all of the NFL. There are now three, arguably. But while we, as a people, Black people, sang the first three songs and were featured in the halftime performance, notwithstanding the deaf rappers who were marginalized and edited out, for me, it's the world's biggest stage. You have Jay-Z, whose production company managed the halftime show. You got certain people in our community getting paid, and you still have us as more than 3/4 of the players in the NFL, and we're not utilizing the leverage that we have. And I'll just cut to the chase and tell you, I like what Coach Deion Sanders of Jackson State University said. He said, if you want to address this, you got to start from the top. If you talk about coaching, that's the middle level. You got to talk about ownership. And if you have not heard, Deion Sanders is saying very loudly, we need 3 expansion teams in the NFL that are guaranteed Black ownership. And so for me, that's the substance of the matter. I affirm the talent of our culture. We are rich with that. And I'll give you another example. Mary sang the national Black anthem, lift every voice and sing. Congressman Bill Clyburn has put forth a bill to make it one of our national songs. We need to defeat the filibuster. I'm glad that June 19th is a federally recognized holiday. I'm glad for the motion to make lift every. Let's defeat the filibuster. Let's correct voting rights. So every time I look at, this broad stage, this national stage, this global stage, I look at us and the need to leverage our influence. If we are 70% plus of the players, we only have 3 coaches, we have advertising dollars, we have economic power. From this podcast on, at every level and every place, we need to be leveraging our power and making a difference. And what happened at the Super Bowl was not enough. It was not enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate you. I mean, again, as always, you put it into stark context for us. I mean, when you do mention that this halftime show, is of course produced, by Jay-Z, the director, was the director of Straight Outta Compton, around that, and I'm wondering, the 3 words that always come to mind for me. When we deal with this. And I know some folk would say, can we just have a good time? Well, you can't just have a good time when a lot of bad things are happening, period. In terms of that. I think we need to really, take time to just, go deep and look deep because there's something called the sports economy, right? Mm-hmm. Just like now we see the war economy, blazing ahead with what could potentially happen, right? In Ukraine and all of that. Both these economies, these are 2 sectors that's an integral part of what I call racial capitalism. You see that we find ourselves in. And I say racial capitalism because the NFL, in so many ways, its history, how it behaves, is an extension of racial capitalism, and you've mentioned the substance that we have to look at beyond the symbol. So the 3 words I just want to lift up, because you're right. It seems as if we do what we got to do, right? Sing the Black national anthem, sing the national anthem, and I mean, if we would just play our role. on the stage, everything will just be fine. Can we just get along, right? But
Yeah.
silence, as you know, Bishop Norwood, results into acquiescence, and acquiescence, the destination of acquiescence is indifference.
Yeah. I want
And
to
I'm
just
and I'm
add
and I'm and I'm
quickly
and
that.
I'm and I'm,
Mhm,
and
go
I'm
ahead.
afraid that we are beginning to inch towards that indifference. As you mentioned, so many folk are just out for symbols, but our democracy, as you say, is in peril.
Mhm,
Especially around the movement of voter suppression, that's going on, and so the controversies, which is part of
mhm,
the suppression of free speech, right, is just
mhm.
a microcosm, if you will, of what's actually happening, in this country. Your thoughts?
I agree with you. As you were talking, I was thinking about Laura Ingram's comments, the conservative white commentator who, in response to LeBron James and his activist statement, said, "Why don't you shut up and dribble?" And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I just think we can't be limited to that. That the layers and complexity are so broad that we got to bring our influence to bear in every way, in every opportunity, at every time that we can. It's not that you don't celebrate and appreciate, again, the performances, the talent, the ability. You mentioned the director of Straight Outta Compton who directed the halftime show, and Jay-Z's production company that sponsored it. There are people getting checks and getting paid, and it's not disseminated throughout the community. We do not have the equity and inclusion that we can have and that we should have. And so, in response to Laura Ingram and the words of her words of "shut up and dribble," we can't do that. We refuse to accept a plantation mentality, whether we're talking NCAA collegiate sports, whether we're talking pro. I think we're at the point we have to bring our influence to bear. Someone said, "What a statement it would have been if Kaepernick would have been walked out on the field during the halftime show." If Flores, I mean,
Right.
you want to push the envelope. I mean, kneeling is one thing. That's a symbol. I mean, we see the NFL has curbed that among players, and I'm familiar with the controversy of Eminem kneeling and other words. But while those deserve their attention, the substantive issues are what concern me most. How are people going to benefit long term throughout the socioeconomic strata in this country?
And the substantive issue in the end, is around how do we continue to challenge the systems of
Mm-hmm,
marginalization, the schemes, right,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
of discrimination, the institutionalized
mm-hmm.
ways, in which people continue to be exploited, excluded, and this exclusion was major. Now, let me just confess that I don't believe in microaggressions, because
Mm-hmm.
it might be a microaggression for me looking at it from a distance, but the person involved, it is a major aggression and not a microaggression. And so what
Mm-hmm.
happened,
Good.
on Sunday, I want to make sure that Leroy, and Keith are with us. Leroy, Keith, are you guys with us?
Yes,
All
yes,
right,
we're
I'm
here.
so glad to have you. I want to bring you guys in because, I join in, right, the halftime show. In fact, I sent out Leroy to my network, the halftime show. Make
Yeah.
sure you guys check out. In fact, Leroy, you said the deaf rappers have names, right?
Yes,
You
that
see, and they're not just deaf rappers, right? They have names, and here and then you mention, you see, the names. I'm going to ask you to mention those names again in terms of the two. So watch out for them. It's gonna be great. And then the snub of them being relegated and marginalized. I just want to bring you all in just to talk about that. As artivists, as activists, as advocates around what's going on with our differently able sisters and brothers. Really invites us to add three more letters to BLM, right? And that is ALL, all Black Lives Matter. Not just some Black lives, but all Black lives. I know, I'm involved in Black Lives Matter, here in Los Angeles and work, with our leaders. And that is certainly not where they're coming from, right? But there is just general sense. And I know, Keith, you have a story about that.
Yes.
But just give us, your sense about, Sunday and just the exclusion, the marginalization, that went on. Leroy, I'll start with you, and then, Keith, you can also share your thoughts around this epic snub.
Yes, thank you so much, Pastor Sauls, for having us. First, I want to make sure that we have people clear that the three deaf hip hop artists, their name is Orange Knight, SNIPE, and Sean Forbes. And the other one was a lady that wasn't on screen, but she was there. So I want to say that these artists did their job. If not, they didn't do nothing wrong. It's the institutions and organizations that surrounds the Super Bowl that did really wrong. So what happened, and let me say that Warren Knight, his nickname is Wawa. He will be on Instagram later today talking about this case. So he's gonna be doing that, soon. But what happened was kind of interesting because I interviewed Wawa like 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, for my class, my PhD class, because I wanted to include sign language in this linguistic class. So I was interviewing him, and he was really psyched about the Super Bowl. He's like, this is the first time that deaf hip hop artists will be, on the main stage at the Super Bowl. A little bit of history, he last year was invited to the Super Bowl to do the national anthem. So this was the second time, going back to the Super Bowl. So what happened, and I'll make it short because I want to keep speaking in here. What happened is that at the last minute that I know of, there was this app that people that are deaf had to download to watch their performance. And I downloaded. No, I didn't download it. I just waited until it came out, and I realized that they were on a separate side of the stage, so they were not a part of the main stage. So that means it wasn't aired on NBC, which was a totally miscalculation or missed something around NBC, because they were not a part of the NBC satellite going out. So only the people that downloaded the app were part. So when I saw it, I also realized that they were in the dark.
Yeah.
Now, how can you read sign language if you're in the dark? Those are two things that really, really just blew me away. I want Keith to get in here too to say something.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Pastor, for having us. The controversy, other than the fact that when we're talking about marginalization and acceptance and community inclusion and things like that, the irony of having hip hop be at the center of your LA return to the Super Bowl was that the majority of the people that they picked, literally 30 years later, were also ostracized for stating what they state.
Mm-hmm.
You know, NWA, straight out of Compton. You talk about Kendrick Lamar, talking about Compton. You even talk about Detroit, and the reason the Eminem was there because of 8 Mile, 50 Cent, Mary J. Blige, and Dr. Dre. What happened to the deaf rappers, or to Wawa and to the other rappers, was not. There's no excuse for it. When you're programming an event, this is 30 years of the work. It's called communications access. And it is a production determination prior to going on stage where you're going to put your ASL interpreters, where you're going to have your ASL crowd, all of those. So there was no, oh my God, we forgot to put you on the main stage. Oh my God, this was calculated and planned. This is not, they did their job. They were amazing. But when the only reason I watched the main time Super Bowl was I'm looking for my people. I'm looking to see an inclusive art performance on one of the world's biggest sporting events. And so the disingenuousness of marketing ASL interpretation to be at the Super Bowl, and then having it be only a feature that you need to go and find. Is no less different than, hey, we serve Black people, but you only sit in the corner that says colored only. Mm-hmm. It's for me watching it. It was an opportunity missed. I think the conversation he'll have much more insight as to the particulars. But as an advocate, the goal of the advocacy is so that we don't have to advocate anymore.
Yeah.
If you do it right, then we'll shut up and go on and watch the game. We will just shut up and dribble if you take your stupidity out of the way. Mm-hmm. But to have a sporting event that is by the fourth largest sporting event on the planet in terms of viewership, not show the full inclusivity of communications access, particularly when you're doing Black history, and particularly when you're using hip hop as the main draw, and particularly because you emphasize the Blackness of the location of Inglewood, mm-hmm. is disingenuous when you literally are saying you're Black enough to be on stage and to entertain us, but you're not Black enough to be included in the communications access. That is not, so if it's Jay-Z's production company, there is no, Leroy has heard me say it, I'm giving nobody passes for their stupidity. Yeah. You do not have an excuse about it was an oversight, we just didn't think of it, we don't know. Because you understood once you invited a deaf community, when you invited the deaf community to participate, communications access is essential and key. And to relegate it to be an add-on or to an adjudication or, a snap-on to go download this, it indicates two things. You were never sincere about your inclusion, and you bask in your stupidity.
Well said, Keith. I mean, it was so, you being kind when you say disingenuous. I would go further and say it's disgusting. You see, because exclusion. We know how exclusion feels, right? Even though it's not the same for everybody, but right. We can always have a sense about it. The other piece is, and this is what happens in the context of racial capitalism, right? How folk who look like us get co-opted, right?
Yes.
To participate. You see, It's almost like, you're in the big house now, Jay-Z. You see what I'm saying? Come on now, somebody.
Yeah,
and now you get to regulate. You see, how things will happen on the plantation. AKA NFL, right? And so we have to, let me just read. Sean Forbes and Warren Wawa Snipe made history by becoming the first deaf rappers to perform at a Super Bowl in the game's 50-year history. The social media users, on the other hand, were dissatisfied, disingenuous, disgusting, I add those two there, with how they were treated, at the show. All right, after being relegated to a different corner. Come on now. Sent to the kiddie table, right? Yeah. Rather than being on the main stage. Sean and Warren, who had been hyped for their performance, became one of the hottest topics. That means somebody somewhere made some money off of them even prior to the Super Bowl. They became one of the hottest topics of conversation after they were pushed aside. Aside. I want to hang my hat on pushed aside, pushed down, pushed out. Leroy, talk with us a little bit about how this has just been an ongoing challenge for Black disabled people, or let me say people, Black people who are disabled, or the term now, of course, is differently able, hence the birth, of Krip Hop Nation, right? Say a little bit just for us about that, because, Bishop Norwood, it's just part of our of us getting to the substance, right, and not just getting caught up in the symbolism of certain actions. So Leroy, say a little bit about, as you schooled me on this, as you educated me on this while we were together in Oakland, around just this ongoing push out, push back, push out of Black people with disabilities.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Sauls. Yeah, I think me and Keith have spent our lifetime fighting for not only inclusion, because we've always been here as Black disabled people, but the attention in the disability rights movement, because every movement has their isms. There's racism in the women's movement, there's racism in the disability movement, there's sexism, so every movement has their isms. So me and Keith have been spending our lifetime, fighting these isms in our own movement, in our own Black community, because the Black community has ableism all over it, and so because of that, my work, I quit my 9 to 5 when I was working at a nonprofit for people with disabilities. And I started my own organization, Disability Advocates and Minorities organization. And I know Keith has done the same in his work. So we do this because we found that there's a roadblock when it comes to educating society around Black disability issues. In the Black community, I keep on saying that Black disabled people can't come home, because in the Black community, we're dealing with what I call Black ableism. And that's only gonna go away if Black disabled people come together and do a national campaign to educate the Black community, because during the disability rights movement, we didn't get that education, because the disability rights movement was mainly a white, middle class movement. So we didn't get that education. So, with the organization I started, now with Krip Hop Nation, that me and Keith are the co-founders, we say that it's more than music, because we're both activists. Mm-hmm. And we both want to use hip hop to educate and advocate about the needs and the talents of Black disabled people and all disabled people, because Krip Hop Nation is international. We got chapters in Africa, we got chapters in Brazil, We got chapters all over. So, my PhD right now at UCLA is in my first year, but the whole reason why I'm here is to start a Krip Hop Institute, with me and Keith are doing, and we've been going to Inglewood with you, Calvin, to really do some community building and education around what we want to do with the Krip Hop Institute. That we want to, open it before the Olympics. So, the neighborhood community and also the Olympics could come to this Krip Hop Institute and be educated by Black disabled people. So we will never have what we saw at the Super Bowl again, because Krip Hop Institute will be here. But
Right.
Keith, I know you want to add.
Yeah, I just going to what you said, and to the fact that we're on here, we're using faith as a platform to discuss this. Coming out of, the Baptist church experience, my grandmama took me to church Monday to Monday. So her saying was, "Baby, take Jesus as your friend," has stuck with me forever. Whether or not I go to church or I don't. One of the things that we're talking about with this discussion is the fact that even in our Blackness, we still have to fight for our Blackness. Even within our Black malehood, we still have to fight for our Black malehood. Even for our Black humanity, we're still fighting for our Blackness and our humanity. There's no reason that we should be discussing Jay-Z, Dr. Dre, Wawa, and everybody in an oppositional tone, considering that the reason you are there, Jay-Z, and the reason you are there, Dre, is because you are able to successfully monetize this art form. And the art form that is being monetized is being exacerbated and exploited based upon Black pain and Black rage. Mm-hmm. And the community that we are part of, we can't even get on stage because there are Black people who are ableist because of but for the grace of God, there go I. Because I can't imagine being deaf and trying to rap. I can't imagine having cerebral palsy and trying to break dance. Not because it's impossible, but for the grace of God, there go I. Because of your human condition being cast as a curse, or as a misrepresentation of healthcare, or what have you. We're talking about environmental racism. We're talking about access to transportation. We're talking about social isolation in 2022 for kids who look like us, who are tracked off to the prison, the pipeline system, or been stuck in perpetual poverty. And yet, the art form that was born by us, i.e. jazz, i.e. rock and roll, R&B, now hip hop, has always been an artistic escape and an expression for your pain and a way out. And at the pinnacle of this, when you're finally having the ability to say, here is the fullness of our Blackness, irrespective of your human condition, you failed utterly and miserably, not by accident. And so when you talk about Krip Hop came along because I couldn't get a record deal because literally was too crippled to rap. And then 98% of the people out there, 99 if you ask me, but that's another story. But to talk about it in a community building sense, what you all are doing when you talk about Faith Without Borders is if God doesn't make a mistake, my disability is in his plan. If I am deaf, then the disability, if my hearing this status is in God's plan. If you're going to be based in faith, if you're going to look at me and say something's wrong with you, you're broken, then you're not based in faith. Then your God did make a mistake, and maybe the mistake is with you. Now that's something that people don't want to talk about. So when we want to really step back and examine what happened at the Super Bowl, you don't spend millions of dollars to make a mistake. you spend millions of dollars to put on exactly what you want the world to see.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a tech person design a specific app and algorithm in order for the people you don't want named highlighted to go and get. That is not happenstance. That is not oversight. That is programmatic access. That is cultural access. That is cultural relevancy, and that goes to how you see the human condition of other Black people who are not like you. And to say that, oh, we're sorry, an apology is fine. The Super Bowl don't come back for another 356 years. And to say next time we'll put y'all on stage. Well, we're sorry, Mr. Jones. We didn't mean to hang that Negro. Next time we'll use a better rope. Nobody, you can't. The next time you step on, let's be clear about this. You have to, if we walking down the street and you don't know me, that's fine. But in places with intention and where you show up and when you make an intentional effort to highlight particular individuals and their communication access needs, and that is not to be set aside. That is to be integrated and to be included in the larger process. So hopefully we'll speak to Drake, we'll speak to Snoop, we'll speak to Jay-Z, and we'll show, and then we can all partner and show them really how it's supposed to be done. To be fully inclusive of everybody's humanity and uplift the art form as it should be.
So, Reverend Sauls, I wanted to just respond and say thank you to Leroy and Keith. That's a sermon. That's a teaching.
Yes.
And I have a confession to make. They say confession is good for the soul, bad for the reputation. I did not know, Reverend Sauls, before the preparation for this podcast of the marginalization and of the deaf rappers. I want to confess that I didn't know. And I appreciate what Keith just said in terms of conversations with Dr. Dre, with Snoop, with Jay-Z. But what can I do? What can we do? And this is the context of me asking this question. When I think of something like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and many have added a B to it now, belonging. And I think about that in regard to race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, nationality, socioeconomic status, language, disability, age, religious commitment, political. We could go on. I'm embarrassed and ashamed to say I didn't know. And I need to do my part at the level that I can do. I'm a pastor with a voice. I'm a professor. I'm out here on social media. And I'm sad on one hand. I'm upset on the other that I didn't know. I don't want to be ableist. I want to do my part. I think they should not have been marginalized. I come from a faith perspective that says, for me, the core belief of the gospel is in Jesus's parable of the sheep and the goats, about the least of these, and I add two more categories, the most of these and the worst of these. And we're dealing with all three. So I want to know what I can do with my part. I want to put that confession out there. Thank you, Reverend Sauls. Thank Keith. Thank Leroy. And what can I do?
Thanks for that. I mean, Bishop Norwood, that's where I was, before Leroy got a hold of me in Oakland. And you're right about the fact that, as Black folk, we have to confess as to our participation in the marginalization, in the exclusion, right? And consequently, we then give others a pass who do that. And so I mentioned those three lines, at the beginning around silence, acquiescence, and indifference, a treacherous path that so many of us may be traveling on. But what mitigates that path and what challenges that path, what disrupts that path is consciousness, awareness, because consciousness results in conscience, you see. And once we are able to consciously, right, or Bishop Norwood, liberation theology, once we engage in a conscientization of people, right, we are then able to raise their awareness at such a level that the invitation can then be extended, around action for diversity, equity, inclusion. But not just that, but also to see how can we participate in reparative and restorative justice. You see, because it's not just what happens today and tomorrow. It's also about what's been happening. You see,
Right.
in terms of that, and so, and I mean that's why this was so, critical for me to highlight. Because again, if Leroy and Keith did not conscientize me about what was going to go down, during the halftime show, I probably would have missed it too. You see, now they probably would have contacted me afterwards and said, "Well, Pastor Sauls, did you know what happened?" And I was like, "Oh, what happened?" You know what I'm saying? In terms of
Yeah.
that. And that's why we have Faith Without Borders, so we can have these courageous conversations, right? In terms of that, and so, I want to, ask the question that Bishop Noah just asked, Leroy, Keith, as we look at this, and as we feel this pain, and as we deal with this sense of, inhumanity and exclusion, right? How can we engage in radical solidarity around, moving, towards, reparative, restorative justice, equity, inclusion, celebrating the depth and breadth, of the richness of our diversity as Black people. Any thoughts from the two of you?
Leroy, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think one is that we need to realize that that disabled people have always been here since Moses. Moses had disability, so it's not inclusion because we've been here. For me, at age 54, it's about implementation. We can educate until the cows come home, but we need the implementation. And for me and Keith, what we're doing now here in LA is to build the Krip Hop Institute. That's huge. I don't know if people realize this is huge. To have our own institution that will educate little Leroy's and little Keith Jones to say that you have a rich history that goes back to the blues. We all know that blues started with people with disabilities, blind blues artists, and all that stuff. But this Krip Hop Institute is going to be an institution that's going to educate our Black community, because a lot of Black museums nowadays don't have anything on disability. Although we know that Emmett Till had a disability. We know that blind blues artists had disabilities. So, what the community can do in LA right here is to get with us. We go to Inglewood, constantly just to outreach and just to talk about our vision. So that's what I'm working on in the last few years of my PhD, is to get this institution out.
Yeah.
Let me
Keith,
yes.
Before you go, because
Yeah.
I want us to we want to give the website that talks about the Krip Hop Institute, but if you can just share around just the it's a vision that we seek to realize the next 3 years, right? Where we seek to establish a physical location or a local location here in Los Angeles or the greater Los Angeles area, from whence will emanate the global work around Krip Hop Nation, which is actually global because there are chapters all over the world, including, my home country of South Africa, where, Leroy has been there, and there are chapters all over. It's just a phenomenal global movement, and the vision for the next 3 years, while Leroy is doing his PhD at UCLA. Big ups, congrats for that, Leroy. We are, kind of, pulling this together. So Keith,
Yes.
if you would maybe share some of the substantive pieces of this vision, and then also
Okay.
give us, the website. We'll add the website, as well, on the screen. Keith?
Well, thank you again. And so, to answer the question and to get the website, so the website will be kriphopnation.com. I'm right, Leroy? kriphopnation.com. And we will give you that. We will be updating the site with the mission statement of the Institute. The Institute's vision is to show the interconnectivity. 1 in 4 African Americans in this country has a disability. 15% of the global population, which, according to the WHO, is an undercount, has a disability. 1 in 4 Americans has a disability. That means nearly 70 million people in this country are people with disabilities. But since we don't grow on trees, since we don't show up by osmosis, we are your brothers, we are your sisters, we are your uncles, we are your sons, we are your fathers, we are your daughters, we are everybody. So in the short term, how can you help? Is to, when you do your programs, make sure your program is accessible. Make sure you have the ASL interpreter at minimum. Make sure your print is in 14-point font at minimum. Make sure when you hold your rallies, there are not these backdoor entrances where you got to take somebody up with a wheelchair. At minimum, if you're going to hold a community rally, make sure that you have space for people who may have mobility impairments at minimum. Start making sure that if you are being an activist, that you're being an activist for the entire community. Because social isolation for people with disabilities is real. We live in the most inaccessible communities in the country. That's why when you think about people who live in projects or people who live in rural areas, transportation, healthcare, the digital divide, these things are real. And these go to why we are putting together the Krip Institute, is to give people the foundation to understand how to build technology, how to use connectivity, how to become entrepreneurs, not just look for a job. How do you build your community by doing your art via different ways of accessibility and communication? How do you use technology to connect chapters who are in Brazil to South Africa, to the Congo, to India, to France, to Germany, to Canada, to America, using the tools that are here now? We're doing this via Zoom. 3 years ago, if we asked for this as an accommodation on the work site, the job would say no, and you're too crippled to work here. Now every other company has a virtual or a hybrid model. Mm-hmm. So the practical implications of Krip Hop Institute being located in Inglewood is that it will be an anchor point as one, because we know with investment, because of the new location of the emerging arena, because of SoFi, often means disinvestment from Black communities and gentrification. So this goes to, how do you keep the community intact? How do you understand that the human condition is not prohibitive of expressing your talent? This is why Krip Hop Institute it will be a proving ground, although we shouldn't have to prove that our humanity is worthy of its existence. But it'll be proof to those kids who've never seen it, to the young queer Black kid who's living in the village where his gender identity would get him killed, to the young lady who may be in Kabul and because she's a female and has autism might get her killed. Because you are a Black man in America and you walk with cerebral palsy, that might get you killed. There's a real gravity to this, but in understanding the gravity, you are levitated by the hope and the possibility of what your talent can give to you and give to the world. So it's technology, it's economic development, it's education, it's artistic training, it's practice spaces, it's being able to socialize and connect and have an anchor point so we can show the community and be a part of the community that solely because I walk different, look different, talk different, my humanity shows up different than yours. That is the fundamental core of it, is respect for each other's humanity, particularly for people of color, particularly because that's the reason we have been fighting for social justice for 400 years. It's not just to replace the oppression, it's to eliminate the oppression and elevate humanity.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ubuntu, that's what it's about, man. Oh my gosh! Look, we've asked God to make something happen within the next 3 years. Now, one thing I know about God is, Bishop Norwood, God is not just on time, but most of the time God is ahead of time.
Yes, sir.
So we're gonna claim, that something's gonna go down for a local physical location from whence will emanate, global programming, activism, artivism, advocacy, for our sisters and brothers who are differently able, not just here in the United States, but around the world, including my hometown of El Dorado Park. There is the Don Matera School for the Disabled. Even they will be able to hook up with the Krip Hop Institute, so that they can celebrate, express, and be about their humanity, in a different and unique way, giving God thanks that different doesn't mean deficient. We are so glad everybody's joining us on Facebook and jumping in all over the place. And I want to appreciate y'all from Georgia, New York, Los Angeles, that's joining us in Los Angeles, folks joining us from the South Side, from Mid-City, and from the West Side. I see you, Bishop, Rabbi Joe. So appreciate you for joining in as well. So it's on. And we're going to face the rising sun of a new day begun, and we're going to continue to march on until victory is won. Come on now, Mary from Inglewood. Bishop Norwood, just give us some concluding words. I always turn to you for that that hermeneutic that is about, the liberation of all people, beginning with the most marginalized, right? And again, it's always much respect to you for the confession, because a lot of folk, will just go on and see if they know something, right? And they ain't knowing nothing. So, so just, some final words from you as we've allowed this a huge entertainment celebration to now, becoming a port of entry for us for edutainment, for education, for enlightenment, and how it sets us now on a path to continue, to march on until liberation, intentionally march on, right? Because we are not here by accident. Intentionally march on, until a liberation, has come for everybody.
So this has been extraordinary. I'm thankful to you, Reverend Sauls, for this panel, for the topic, for the subject. I've been helped, I've been informed, I've been educated, but I have a conviction to execute. I heard the instructions that the gauntlet has been thrown down, and what's ringing in my head is, at a minimum, what I can do as a faith leader, what I can do as a person, what I can do as a professor. And there's a list that I took. I was taking notes. And this is right in line with the mandate of the gospel, with the core of the gospel. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has anointed me. He's anointed us to bring good news to the poor, sent us to proclaim the captives will be released, that the blind will see, that the oppressed will be set free, and that the time of the Lord's favor has come. And I close with a quote from James Cone, father of Black theology. He says, theology is always a word about liberation. Liberation of the oppressed and humiliated. Whenever theologians fail to make this point unmistakably clear, they are not doing Christian theology, but the theology of the Antichrist. I don't want to do the theology of the Antichrist. I want to speak truth to power. I want to begin with me. I want to reach my community, and I want to reach beyond, and I want to reach every level that I can in every way that I can at every time that I can. So thank you. Thank you, brothers.
Appreciate you, sir. Appreciate you so much. I've asked Leroy to close us out with some poetry, because he's my spoken word man. I couldn't resist, because Felicia, AKA the poetess, is also straight up into it, and always appreciate her partnership in making this platform accessible to us. And so, Leroy, I know you have a little something for us, but I want to just in case somebody's out there, asking, well, why, those, two, rap artists. I want to just, read that Warren Wawa Snipe is best known for founding the Wild Zappers, not rappers, the Wild Zappers, a deaf dance group consisting entirely of men. Though Deaf Eyes, the Washington, D.C. native who has been singing since 2005, coined the term dip hop for hip hop, right? Sean Forbes, on the other hand, expressed his excitement for performing, at the Super Bowl on social media by posting a photo of himself with Dr. Dre, as well as other, news clippings. So these, two, artivists and rappers, they've been in the game for a long time. They just didn't show up last Wednesday 4 days before the Super Bowl, right? Okay. They've been on the street in the game, dropping, some street theology, some good news about, the liberation and the inclusion and the implementation. Yeah, Leroy, you helped me today again. It ain't about inclusion no more, because we've been here, right? It's about the implementation of a path, to make sure that our humanity is made visible. So has Leroy been, in the game and on the battlefield and on the forefront, around, the challenge of the marginalization, the discrimination, and the exclusion, of our sisters and brothers who are differently able. He is, an author. He is a recording artist, and I'm gonna ask him to close us out as we, do what the Super Bowl didn't have the courage to do, and that's provide a platform, for, our sisters and brothers who are differently able, to share their gifts, and through that, bless us. So, Leroy, you want to share what you have for us?
Yes, thank you, Sauls. I want to share, because the Krip Hop Institute is not only a building, it's a Krip Hop theory. We have our own theory, we have our own language. So I want to share this. It's called Krip Hop theory. Had to strip down and build myself back up. Now ready to spread it around. Ready for that dead white man lump. My first year for a PhD. You will try to shake me. My feet are grounded. You might think you got me surrounded. I got my armor on. Sound like the teacher on Charlie Brown. Blah, 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 blah. Can you hear that? Krip Hop sound. Say, hey, UCLA, I got my own sway. You will know my name. Second year teaching my story, including Krip Hop theory, a new vocabulary, more than an institutional story, being a different kind of hip hop history. Abilism brings a new way of survival that takes it to a new level. music making in segregated institutions, thinking about the Blind Boys of Alabama, taking back our name to flip it from cripple to Krip with a K, based in internal and external discrimination, made us create secret messages in song lyrics, from the dozens to field songs to drinking gore, blue stories from Black blind men and women singing amen in oppression has to end, from standing on corners to ciphers, bridging the gap with Nas and his father, blues to Krip hop, you can't stop Krip hop theory in hip hop studies. I hope UCLA is ready for me. Bringing in a new way of teaching after 5 years, bring it back in the community with Krip Hop Institute that will hold Krip Hop theory. Thanks for having us.
All right. Hey, man, thanks. Keith, you have a last word for us, man, and then we're going to wrap this thing up.
I don't know how you follow Leroy after that, but the last word is, again, thank you, Pastor Sauls, for having us. Thank you for Faith Without Borders. I think your mission is right. It's true. It's needed. Thank you for giving us a platform to talk about, not to talk about complaining, but to give help and to offer solutions, as well as partnerships, because we can complain all day. Complaining ain't what we're about. We're about solutions and moving the community forward. So thank you again. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Shout out to Rob Denoise Temple, our other co-founder. And we hope you guys have a good day.
Thanks, man. That was Keith Jones, Leroy Moore. They are all part of the Krip Hop Nation. And their website is kriphopnation.com. And I just appreciate you all so much. Bishop Dr. Monte Norwood from Atlanta, Senior Pastor Bible Way Ministries International. My brother, I appreciate you and really looking forward to our ongoing, our work together as you continue to live into your new role, taking the helm of the social justice, portfolio, for your denominational movement. So really excited about all of this. Thank you so much for being with us. It's all about realizing beloved community, y'all. And so as we continue to do what we do at Faith Without Borders, and that is to create a platform, for thought-provoking and solutions-driven, courageous conversation, on critical transnational issues. Keith is right. Here, we don't complain. We courageously analyze so that we can collaboratively organize and then audaciously mobilize to realize beloved community. That's what Faith Without Borders is all about. We had a great time. Thanks for being with us. And we'll see you all again, same time, same place in 2 weeks. And with that, I say, continue to be and become beloved community. Peace out.